Sorry, I got talking to somebody. I wasn't taking ownership of my time. Okay. So, yeah, we're also here with a table. So, I am the director of ownership. So, we're going to talk about what does ownership look like. Obviously, you're intrigued by that if you're here for this topic. Why it's important. Why do you want your kids to own their education? I promise you do. There's something in it for you. And then how you get them ready. It actually starts really young, but don't panic. If your kids are not young, you can do this retroactively later. But there are steps that you kind of can't avoid that will make them avoid owning it. And then questions. I'm going to leave you time for questions. What time am I done? 2:30. Okay.
But we start a few minutes later. So
okay. And I kept the slides pretty simple because I wanted you to have time to have questions. So this is my family. Aren't they cute? But I really quickly, I always like to know, like, who's talking to me? Like, why should I listen to you? Who's talking to me? I've been teaching since 1989. Don't do the math. I was like 12. And I homeschooled my 3 kids, so my 3 kids are in those pictures and then add in a couple spouses. I homeschooled all 3 of them from kindergarten to college. All of them got into college, and we went, oh, okay, we didn't wreck them, which is what my mother-in-law said we were doing for 12 years until they all got into college, and we didn't wreck them. So one is graduated from college, one is in the middle of college. He graduated he finished high school. I homeschooled him privately at 16 and started college, so he's still in the middle of it. And then one dropped out of college because Disney cast her, and she was in college to be a performer and decided she should just take a job instead. So I wrote For the Love of Learning, which is very much this topic, but it's sort of what you do when your kids are 6 to 12 years old, so that when they move into their preteens and teens, they will actually take ownership. And I'm the director of Elevated Charter School, this is our first operational year, and we're growing. I like this quote. I like quotes in general. I have a literature background. Taking complete ownership of your outcomes by holding no one but yourself responsible for them is the most powerful thing you can do to drive your success. So one of the answers to why would I want my kids to take ownership of their education, besides the fact that you would like them to move out of your basement eventually, is taking ownership drives success. Inability to take ownership is usually what holds people back. Okay, so what does it look like? I promised we would talk about that. It looks like this. I did very graphic. So it looks like they know how to set goals, make plans, get to work, stay with it. Everybody is great in the get to work because they're excited here and they're excited here, and then everybody hits a hurdle. Nobody's plans go, I don't know, have any of you ever made big goals and they went perfectly? Okay, and I used to tell my kids, it probably means you're on the right track because life throws hurdles at you. And they do reach their goal. So it looks like that. It looks like, I know it's a traditional classroom, but it was the best picture I could. It looks like asking for help when they need it. So ownership does not mean you're done. Congratulations, you're 12, you're done. I can tell you as the director of a school, I've had to have a couple talks with some parents of 6th, 7th graders who are like, well, she should do it herself. I'm like, she doesn't know how to do it herself. There's time management and study management. And so we talk about gradual. They will go read on their own. They will do projects on their own. They understand time management. They're not great at it. They also understand how to peer learn, so different resources. Okay, so why? Well, first I'll ask you guys, why? Why was this intriguing to you? What are the benefits of your kids taking ownership of their education?
Easier for us.
It's easier for you. Yeah, it should be easier for you if they do it. Yeah?
When they buy into it, they want to do it, they're excited, and they learn more. It seems like.
Yeah, they definitely learn more. You can't force someone to learn. You can force someone to memorize and regurgitate, but you cannot force someone to learn. They will forget it if they didn't want to do it. I saw, yeah.
It empowers them and prepares them for their future.
Yeah, we want to prepare them. We want them to do better than us. Okay, so that's what I just said. Okay, and you already answered this. For them, it empowers them. For you, makes it easier. They learn more. Okay, this is kind of the meat of what I'm going to talk about. So prepping your kids for ownership. So they don't just turn a magic age and ta-da, you announce to them that they are now in charge of their education. The result of that will be a lot of avoidant behavior. If you're lucky, your house will get cleaned. If you're not lucky, it looks like video games all the time. So here are the things that prep kids to be ready to take ownership. You can start these as young as 6, 7 years old, but if you have older kids, you still need to do these things. And I will say if any of these are missing, that's why they're not taking ownership. I don't believe in lazy kids. My favorite age group is 12 to 18 years old. I don't believe in lazy kids. I believe in kids who are missing one of these things, and so they're afraid or they just don't have the skills to be proactive. So they need to love learning, because learning is hard, especially as they get older. So if they don't love it, if they don't realize there's a payoff at the end of it, they won't do it. They'll do something else. They need to have confidence that they can learn and not be waiting for you. Like, I can't do my math homework because Dad's not home yet, and I have to wait for him to come home and spoon feed me the math. They need to know how to learn. And this one's you guys, you need to model ownership in your own life. So if there's something, which could be really easy, that's like, I don't know how to, yesterday I had to assemble these stupid cardboard blocks for a staff meeting. I call them stupid because nowhere on the description to buy them did it say assembly required. And so I opened them like a responsible person the day before the staff meeting and realized I had to assemble 48 blocks, and they're not easy. I should have found a 6-year-old to do it. So, you also have to model it. Okay, so what can you do to foster a love of learning? Mr. Rogers, think what you want about him. I know it can be controversial, but I do like this quote. A love of learning has a lot to do with learning that we are loved. So a big thing that you can do to foster a love for learning is to create a lot of positive emotional connection with learning. That happens by reading together. That happens by you're all driving in the car and you're having a spelling bee in the car. We used to do it all the time. Or play card games that are teaching them something, even though they want to. It has to, so they're associating things they're learning with their emotional connection to you as parents as their number one connection. As a director, I talk to my teachers a lot about relationship, because kids will do things for teachers they care about more than for people they think are just trying to find all the points they can take off of their stuff. Any ideas about other ways to create how do you make learning emotionally positive? Are you waving? What are some times you've had with your kids that were like bonding, but they were learning something? Yeah.
They still talk about it. During COVID, we would have tea parties. We would study a country, and we would make a drink from that country and have a tea party, and have my husband come, and they would tell him all about the country.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah. Yeah, and it wasn't the country they cared about. It was, but they'll remember it because it's connected to that emotion. Go get her. Yeah.
And that's another thing. We do not store memory without emotion.
Right.
The amygdala in our brain is what causes that emotion. It's the hippocampus in the brain that's the storage file bin. Mm-hmm. And if you were to ask yourself, what was my earliest memory? Ask yourself, what emotion was I feeling?
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Yeah, they're very interconnected. So you want them to remember that. And they might not remember it perfectly, but it'll at least trigger them. Fostering a love for learning And this can be challenging if you have your own agenda about what they're supposed to learn. Interest-led learning and inquiry-led learning, meaning what are they interested in, and or what question do they want answered. So our school does this. Well, I focus a lot on teaching skills. You can read anything that's appropriate and learn to read. You can do math a million different ways. You're still going to learn math. You can learn. So I focused a lot on their interest. I would literally sit my kids on my lap and we would shop on the computer. I think it'd be different now. They're all grown, so it was a while ago. And we would look at unit studies that you could just buy on like Amazon, and they would tell me, ooh, I like that subject. And they were integrated, so there'd be some writing and some science and there'd be stuff. So letting them choose, and I just cared that they were learning, are you learning the skills? I still can't name all the capitals of the United States, but I do teach history. But I can reconstruct in my mind the United States based on what I found interesting, like different places I've lived and people I care about lived, and I'm like, okay, well, they were there and they were, so I know that state goes below that state. So it really does help them, and it's okay. When my oldest was about 8, my mother-in-law, who is a national merit teacher, that's what everyone should have when they want to homeschool. She went up to my daughter and was trying to quiz her on all the names of the dinosaurs, because apparently that is a 3rd grade standard, and she was the age of a 3rd grader. My daughter, who really didn't care about dinosaurs, was like, I have no idea. And my mother-in-law was very concerned and went to my husband and was like, she doesn't know the dinosaurs. And he's like, and he's like, that's a standard. She's supposed to know the dinosaurs. By the way, it's a standard to help them, like, because it's like getting them started for science. Like, nobody cares if they can name all the dinosaurs unless you're going to be an archaeologist or a paleontologist. Like, it's not going to be in a job interview. So he went up to her and he said, can you sing the song that names all the chemicals in the periodic table? And yep. So he's like, we taught her what she's interested in and what we're interested in, and she'll learn the dinosaurs. She now can name most dinosaurs, so it's okay. A lot of hands-on exploration. This looks different depending on your kids. Sometimes hands-on, if you have little junior authors, that means they're writing their own book. That could mean they're coding a video game. It could also mean they're building something with Legos. My son really liked, and I think it's still around, Minecraft classes, like different places put on. Like he actually took a literature class through Minecraft where they went on a server and he read any book. They all read whatever book they wanted, and then he built in Minecraft the setting from one part of his book, and it was really cool, and he remembers it really well. So lots of hands-on interactive, and you modeling a love for learning. Like the thing that it makes me cringe the most with a school is when I hear kids say things that I know came from the parent. Like, I'm not going to need math. I have kids who say that, and it came from their parents. This is too hard. I can't do this. Like, no one in my family is good at this. I'm like, oh, don't message them that. Okay, so fostering a love for learning. Building their confidence. If nobody wants to own something they feel uncertain about. Nobody wants to buy a contraption. I was just looking on Amazon at treadmills, and I was looking at the reviews, and the treadmills I said no to were the ones that were like really hard to put together and really hard to maintain. I'm like, no thank you. I don't know enough about the mechanics of treadmills, so I have to buy a different one. How do you build their confidence? Are you all familiar with growth mindset? I feel like it is the buzzword of the decade. We were doing growth mindset with our kids for years, way before the book was famous. But it just means not giving up and understanding that mistakes are part of learning. And I did that a lot with my kids by just reading them stories about scientists and mathematicians are fantastic because they all failed 100 times before they got it right. So those are really great for that. Just teaching them that learning is a process and not a destination. So even if you do meet this goal and you learn how to do this thing and make a duck with a 3D printer, which we spent a lot of money on thread to get a duck right, there's still going to be something else. Like that still leads to something else. Once again, modeling, like learning yourself. That could be, I took piano lessons in my 30s because my girls didn't want to take piano lessons and I really wanted them to take piano lessons. So I called the piano teacher and I bribed her to come to my house so my kids could watch me play the piano badly, but stick with it. And now they both play the piano. So not super well, but at least they did something. Just teaching them that learning is lifelong, that kind of goes along with that. And stories, which I think taps back into emotions, like you were saying. We also remember stories because stories evoke emotion, and emotion triggers our memory. And so just constantly telling stories. I would tell my kids stories about when I was younger and I was learning things. Your kids all think you popped out as an adult with just all this stuff in your head. And they're frustrated. My son used to tell people he couldn't read, and it really bothered me because he could read. And so finally I asked him, why are you telling people you can't read? And he's like, well, I can't read because I read big books. I have a literature degree. I read big, fat books, and I like real books so you can see. And so we had a discussion about how, well, okay, when I was little, like this is what I read and this is what I read. Like, you're not at the big book stage yet, but it's still reading. So just letting them know that it's a process. Okay, and finally, so we have fostering love of learning, building their confidence, teach them how to learn. And when I say how to learn, I don't mean teaching them. Memorizing is a very good skill, and I actually think it's kind of a muscle that's good to develop, but it's just one strategy of learning, and it's not the most effective if you want something to stay with you. So, and if you want any books on memorization and increasing your memory, Jim Quick's, what's it called? There's a movie by the same name. It's not the same thing. Anyway, if you look up Jim Quick, you'll find he writes books about using different like mnemonics and different techniques for your memory, and which also gives your brain exercise. But teaching them learning strategies over memorization. Any ideas what a learning strategy is? Yeah.
One is like when I was teaching her all about spelling in California, I is how I say it when I spell it. So I just remember the I.
Yeah.
So there's lots of little tips and tricks that curriculum taught us to use different ones based on what we were trying to learn to spell.
Right, and just teach them that it's okay to use little tricks. Like that's not, I've actually heard kids say that's cheating. To this day, I'm over 50 and I say veggie tables to spell it correctly, or I spell it wrong. What are strategies for learning? Don't think about the subject. What are some, if you want to learn something, what do you do?
I think there's things about helping them to learn how they learn best. Am I a kinesthetic learner? Do I need to be moving while I do this? Do I learn best by listening to something and also taking notes? Do I learn best by talking and teaching it to somebody else? How do I learn best?
Yes, and that there's no right way. You just have to figure out what your way is. You just covered bullet point number 3. Awesome. So if there's something you want to learn, like tomorrow, you're like, I'm going to learn to crochet. What would you do?
Watch a YouTube video.
YouTube is fantastic. Supervised. It can go wrong really fast, so please supervise your kids. But I pulled up a YouTube video to figure out how to put together one of the blocks because we couldn't figure it out. Yeah.
Start with a children's book.
Yes. Yeah. Start something simple.
Like a picture book or something. If it's a topic you want to delve deeper into later, start with something simple.
I love that. All my kids read really pretty picture books of Shakespeare growing up. And then when they were older, they read, all three of my kids have read Shakespeare's entire body of work or watched it. But they knew it because they knew the story. So then they would go watch it and the language was confusing. But they're like, well, I know they're having a fight or I know this is happening, so they would figure it out. And now they're really good at insulting you in Shakespearean insults. So, yeah, starting simple, asking for help. Owning your education doesn't mean you don't ask for help. And it definitely is easier on you because you stop being the teacher of every subject, which frankly, after they hit about 11, becomes really difficult. And you become the facilitator. So like my daughter would come to me, I can't teach secondary math, and she would come to me and she did not have a great math teacher. I outsourced math because she wouldn't learn math from me. So I outsourced it. So, and he wasn't fantastic. And she would come to me and she didn't know, and neither did I. But I'm like, well, I know you can find a video on that topic on Khan Academy, and I know there's math sites that you can look at that'll give you examples, and you could also actually look in the back of the book at the answer and then work backwards. Those are all strategies. And not only could she do it for that homework, she did it all the way into college. And she taught other kids how to do it. So just empowering them. Okay, so I ran through that really fastly because, quickly, sorry, English major. Questions, personal struggles, like you came probably with a question in mind that you wanted to have solved, and what did I not solve? What can I, if you're brave enough to give specific examples from your child who will not be named and we won't tell them. Yeah.
When you are trying to teach, skills,
Mm-hmm.
like specifically like spelling or math or whatever, and they're to a point where they just don't want to do it. Like I have this really hard balance between just let them give up and keep the positive emotions going, or push them to struggle and they're frustrated. Like I have a hard time balancing that because I want it to be a positive,
Right. You don't want them to hate learning, but
Right,
how old?
Right. But at some point, skills that you don't love need to be taught.
Yes, you do need to learn them. At what age are you talking about?
All of the ages.
Okay.
I'm struggling with a
Yeah.
9-year-old, but I also struggle with it with like a 15-year-old.
So I will say I would go back and see if you think any of these are missing. Like, are any of these missing? Like, why are they resisting this? So that's the first thing. I do personally think, and my kids are all grown and minimally weird. So I can say, I do think there is a point, but I can't tell you what age it is. Like, your kids. It's your parenting. There is a point where you do switch from we're going to play, like all learning is play-based, to no, you need to do this. Now, I used to tell my kids, we have required subjects at our homeschool, and they are literature or reading, math, science. I required music at our homeschool, and I required history every single year. Not social studies, history. That's a whole other soapbox. You can come talk to me about it later. And they had to do all of those. How they did them was open for discussion. So if you don't like now, do not be super quick to change curriculums, because I've also seen parents make the mistake of going through 5-6 curriculums in a year. Your kids know how to stall their learning, and you know how they do it? They complain to mom or dad that they hate their curriculum, and they know that it's going to be about 3 weeks before you can buy the new curriculum. Like, your kids are really smart. Plus, anytime you change, even if it's a change for the best, there's a backslide. Anytime you change. So I'm not saying never change your curriculum, because sometimes you do need to just change what you're doing, but be careful if you're on your 3rd curriculum. Like, maybe the problem is not the curriculum. So I would just get creative about, okay, well, so how do you want to learn that? Like, our family does not is not illiterate. There is no I'm not going to read option, but what do you want to read? Do you want to read graphic novels? My son learned to read Dungeons and Dragons manuals. Like, he just wasn't interested until he wanted to play D&D, and those books are hard, and they have made up words, and he had to use his phonics because there was no other way. So, you know, do you want to take an outside class? Do you want to? So I get really creative, but there is an age at which I say, it's not optional. That you can't just opt out. The other thing I'll say is, if you really, because it's also about personality. So you guys know your kids. If pushing them is just going to get passive resistance, which nobody is learning if they're just trying to prove you wrong. I have seen homeschooled kids who like did not do much math in their teen years, and they did reach a point, and it's scary. This is a scary thing for parents. They did reach a point, sometimes at 16 and 17 years old, where they now have a goal where they want to go do this job or this thing, and math is required. And they absolutely can go backwards. And when they're older, they don't have to do 4 years of math. 4 years of math concepts. When you're older and they want it and it's their choice, I've seen kids do it in 3 months. So I also wouldn't panic because they really can catch up, and you can try really hard not to be smiling in the background when they are killing themselves trying to cram 4 years of math into 3 months. Like, you know, I told you, but it's okay. Anybody else? Yeah.
Do you do an online version or some classes online with your charter school?
With my charter school? We do. So we basically, this is what I tell my teachers is their goal for K through 6. And then we continue it if there's gaps here for the higher grades. We do live online classes. Every subject is taught separately, and all the way down to kindergarten. And we don't label anything by grade level. So I have kids who are in, so they're like right on par with reading, but they're a little bit ahead in math, or they're behind in math, and so we just kind of plug them in because they don't meet every day, all day. And then there's a lot of things that are optional, so they can choose, and the ones who need a challenge can choose. So we do that. But I do a lot of training with my teachers about you're supposed to be building confidence in these kids. So if you have a kid who's really resisting, I tell my teachers the same thing I just told you. Try to figure out, like, do they not know where they can go and get help? Do they think they're bad at math? I mean, that's kind of a common dialogue, but some kids will tell you they're bad at math. Or the opposite, they're really good at math, so it should never be hard for them. So sometimes those super smart kids hit a math concept that's hard for them, and they throw up their hands and they're like, there's something wrong with this math because I can't do it and I'm good at math. But just, I mean, remind yourself when that happens, it's not the math that's upsetting them. That's their identity. Like, part of their identity is I'm good at math. I'm a math nerd. And so that's shaking their identity. So then it's just, I made my son watch Hidden Figures because he was one of those kids who was like, math should be easy. And I'm like, nope. So I made him sit down and watch Hidden Figures because they are the biggest minds in the world, and they had a big chalkboard, and they just, like, they had to work together, and they didn't just know how to do it, you know. So I think I'm out of time, but if you want to talk to me, I'll go out in the hallway so the next person can come in. But thank you very much. Nice to see you.